Going back to Chicago, Nicholas says, is Allah a proper name for God, or is it a descriptor of the meaning the God? Some Arabic Christians think Allah and God are one and the same. Now, I don't know my Arabic, and I think there is a sense in which Allah is the Arabic word for God. That said, I don't think that it matters, because nobody in Arabia would take Allah to mean anything other than the God of Islam. So I think that it is incorrect for Christians to use the term Allah to refer to God. Now, we may go to some other languages. For example, here in northern New Mexico, some people may call God Deus, and using, of course, the Spanish, which comes from the Latin, which comes from the Greek. And use that term. And in that sense, it would be referring to God. And of course, you'd have to take the context to realize what it is. There is that sense in which, okay, yes, that's true in any language. You can take the word God. Even in English, you have to take the context and decide, is it capital G or is it little g? Is it God or is it God? Which kind of God are you talking about? The God of this world, the God of this age, the God of money, whatever it is. And so God is God is God is God. It's a deity. So there is the sense in which Allah is that. However, in usage, and that's what really matters in language, isn't it? In usage, Allah means the God whose final prophet is Muhammad. And that is not the Christian God. That God, Allah, does not have a son, a single son, Jesus Christ, who's his only begotten, who paid the final price for sins. So if I was a missionary, for example, in a Muslim part of the world, I would not be using that term Allah. I was reading Lee's comments here. There is a view that Aliyah, if I pronounce that right, was a specific name for the Arabian pantheon, the moon god, hence the moons on the many Arabic flags. Interesting. I think I would find something else to use, because everyone, calls him Allah. And that is the God of the Mohammedan. And I would just reject that. So whether I had to use an English word or I used a Hebrew word, which most in the Middle East are familiar with Hebrew and Arabic are somewhat related. So I would go with the Elohim, and talk about Elohim, this God, this particular God we're talking about. I even think that we have to consider this when we start talking about Jesus. In our world today, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, well, their Jesus is a completely different identity than our Jesus. And so we've got to be careful not to just say, well, Allah, there's God, and they're both the same. No, they're not the same. Begin to describe them. Show their picture, and then see if they're the same. Show their family tree, and then see if they're the same. Show what they do, and then see if they're the same. Show what they said, and then see if they're the same. So don't get caught up in nomenclature on this thing. Get caught up in identity. And definitely the identity of the God of Islam is very different than the identity of the God of Christianity, no doubt about it. And while our friend in Washington, Emmer, I agree with you. They do the same with Jesus, Isa, as they call him. Well, the Isa they've got, the Jesus they got, again, just isn't the same one. It is parts that they have picked and chosen. And I think that we ought to be careful with this.